know, I was perfectly fine with closing the book on my Minus One discussion with my original hopes, concerns, and other thoughts video, at least until the movie came out, of course. I basically said everything that I wanted to say, and I didn't think anything else that would come out would warrant me to make another video. And then we got this. So, I guess I'ma do another Minus One video then. So remember in my first video when I said this? I think it's fair to say that we've only seen the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Godzilla's rampage in this film. God, I love being right about things. We get a little more of a look into the destruction that Godzilla was causing in the first trailer, as well as several new shots of destruction, such as him trampling people in the streets, some big ass explosions, and him throwing a boat. I said it once and I'll say it again, this is the most visceral destruction we've ever seen in the Godzilla movie. Godzilla's rampages are going to be genuinely intense and frightening. I had the Storm on Oto Island theme from Godzilla 1954 playing in my head during these scenes, and to my ear it matches perfectly. Speaking of music, I should also mention that incredibly dramatic and haunting music piece that plays during the trailer. This song makes it seem like Japan is utterly doomed in this time of crisis. If this is a tease as to what Naoki Sato, the film's composer, has to bring to the table when it comes to this movie, then good lord, I am here for it. And in case anyone is still unsure of what he can do, he did the Godzilla theme that played in Always 2 as well, so the dude has some experience when it comes to Godzilla music. Will we get a brand new version of the Godzilla theme in this movie? Maybe. I'd be perfectly okay with getting a brand new theme for the big green idiot in this movie, but at the same time, the last two iterations of the classic Godzilla theme we've gotten are absolute bangers, so maybe we could get a 3 for 3 here. I don't know. Something else I wanted to talk about with the trailer is how we actually do have a cast listing with several different actors. We only have descriptions for 2 of them at the moment. Koichi Shikishima is a war survivor who unfortunately lost his parents during that time, and Noriko Oishi is a strong woman who is living in the burnt-out post-war Japan and just happens to meet up with Shikishima. I say this because in my last video, I mentioned that I thought this movie could be stylistically similar to something like Pulp Fiction, where you have numerous stories being told at once before coming together at a certain point. And that is the first thing that seems to be proven wrong, considering that these two meet up at a certain point and you could realistically tie certain scenes together with both of these characters in mind. Like these scenes at sea could be with Shikishima, for example. I think we're getting a sort of A and B story with Shikishima's side of things and Oishi's side of things, getting 2 different perspectives on Japanese citizens who survived the war, which is very cool. We don't know though. The 2 of them are in that massive explosion scene right there, same outfits and everything, so who knows what's gonna happen to them. Another thing I want to bring up is the US release of this thing. Holy shit, it's gonna be an IMAX! This genuinely caught me by surprise. I was totally expecting this thing's release to be pretty much exclusive to standard theaters, but IMAX? Consider me seated in front of that 100-foot tall screen watching Godzilla massacre the innocents on day 1. It's genuinely exciting that Toho is pushing this movie so much. I hope that it's successful over here and that it can bring in a good chunk of money. Considering that this is an international film, I don't know how well it's gonna do here. Definitely not Hollywood blockbuster numbers, I can imagine. If the Monsterverse can barely pull 100 million, then I doubt that Minus One will even be able to crack a quarter of that. But you never know, maybe it'll do stupidly well. It doesn't seem to have a lot of competition over here thanks to movie studios pushing back all their releases due to the strikes, so maybe Minus One will thrive in this empty space. We'll just have to wait and see when this thing comes out, I guess. The last thing I want to talk about is the tone and vibe of this thing, and that is still absolutely prevalent in this trailer. A lot of people are getting vibes from 1954 in this, and that is absolutely a fair comparison to make, but for me, this reminds me so much of Godzilla 1984. The shots of people fleeing Godzilla's rampage, the gloomy daytime scenes, and the general apocalyptic atmosphere of the thing really bring me back to the return of Godzilla and how its tone was. Obviously cranked up to 11 in Minus One, but the similarity is absolutely there. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's get to the juicy stuff. Let's talk about Godzilla. I'm gonna do a little bit of speculation here again, but it won't be as potentially spoiler heavy as it was last time, mainly because we don't have any leaks to go off anymore, because they were proven to be false with the recent cast listings. So in case you didn't know, shortly after Minus One got announced, a leak began to spread around on 4chan that talked about the plot, the characters, and the Godzillas. This was the leak that mentioned the existence of 2 separate Godzillas that would do battle with each other, War of the Gargantua style. Anyways, this leak has now been proven to be fake as hell, bro. The leak said that the characters were a family of Serizawas, particularly a brother and a sister that survived the war but lost their parents. We now know that the 2 supposed main characters are not Serizawas, so it's pretty safe to say that this leak is fake. However, there is still one interesting detail: the existence of the Minus One Monster A Bandai figure. This is the thing that a lot of people were thinking that could be the other Godzilla in the film, or if not that, then something like Anguirus, or if you're based, Rodan. At this point though, from what I've seen in the trailer and what I've discussed with other people, I'm starting to think something else entirely. I think that Minus One Monster A is a pre-mutated Godzilla, but they're the same Godzilla. So here's what I'm thinking. It's a widely accepted idea that Godzilla is gonna get hit by a nuke in this film. Whether that be at the start or later on in the film is unknown, but bro is gonna get nuked probably. My theory is that this would happen in the beginning of the movie, and over the course of the movie we see him mutate. Essentially we'd be getting another evolving Godzilla, but on a much smaller scale. In Japan, it's a pretty big theory that Godzilla's dorsal plates are gonna grow in size throughout the film, starting off smaller before getting to the size that we see on the main renders of the design. This seems to be supported by one of the other renders of Godzilla that's been released having noticeably smaller dorsal plates than all the others. So here's what I'm thinking. A pre-mutated Godzilla gets nuked at the start of the movie, and over the course of the film his dorsal plates just keep growing from there. I actually think I know where Godzilla could possibly get nuked. This shot right here of what seems to be Godzilla shooting his atomic breath up towards a couple battleships, Godzilla vs. Kong style. Right before the explosion, you can see something looming over both ships. A very faint silhouette with what appears to be a couple of eye spots. This could very well be our unmutated Godzilla, but what about the atomic breath from underneath, I can hear you wondering? Well, I discussed this with a couple of other people when the trailer dropped, and they brought up the possibility that nuclear explosions in this movie could be styled like Godzilla's atomic breath and vice versa. This shot here is often speculated on being Godzilla after he shoots his heat ray, so maybe the people behind this movie want to draw those comparisons directly, which could go really hard. Could I be completely wrong? Absolutely, and I'm totally expecting to be wrong once the movie comes out, but hey, it's a thought. I feel like this movie is definitely going to open up in that sort of way, with Godzilla being nuked and then he goes on his rampages in Japan. Hell, I can see an opening very similar to Gamma vs. Virus, where Godzilla attacks the warships, gets nuked, we briefly see the aftermath, and then the title card drops. So yeah, double Godzilla theory is no more, but I still think that there will be an unmutated and a mutated Godzilla in the movie. It's just the same creature. Once again, I want to reiterate how the part that excites me the most about this movie is how the leaks for it have been proven to be wrong. It makes the speculation regarding this movie to be so much more fun and interesting because it's actual speculation as opposed to just knowing everything that's gonna happen before the movie even comes out. One of the big things about this movie now is how on earth is it going to end? Godzilla is such an imposing and destructive force here, and considering that Japan is basically on their own for the entire time, it'll be interesting to see if they'll be the ones to dig themselves out of the situation or if the allied forces will take care of Godzilla. It's so exciting to think of, and it only makes me more and more excited for this movie to come out here in the States. From the trailers we've gotten, Minus One seems to be an incredibly dark, moody, and intense movie that brings Godzilla back to his roots and makes him more frightening than ever before. Considering that this has been something that director Takashi Yamazaki has been wanting to do for nearly 20 years, I hope that this story is certainly one that's been worth telling. Every single Reiwa Godzilla film on both sides of the Pacific has been able to put its own unique stamp on Godzilla that makes that film its own. Shin is an intense political thriller that brings the horrors of 54 into the modern day. The anime trilogy used Godzilla and his monster co-stars as vessels to bring up philosophical debates about human nature, and each Monsterverse film brings its own concepts and ideas to the table. Well, okay, two of them do. Godzilla vs. Kong is about nothing. I hope that the stamp that Yamazaki puts on Godzilla adds to this insanely fun and exciting era of Godzilla and is just as good as the trailers make it out to be. A despair-filled period piece that fully realizes the horror-filled roots that the series started out with is something I cannot wait to see on the big screen come December. So with that said, bring it on, Yamazaki. I'm hoping for the best with Godzilla Minus One. Here's hoping that I won't have to make another Minus One video before this movie drops in the States. I have big things coming to this channel in the next couple months, and I cannot be dragged down with more new Big Lizard Japan. In case you couldn't already tell, I am insanely excited for Minus One. It's the most hyped I've been for a movie, let alone a Godzilla movie, in quite a long time, and I really hope that Yamazaki delivers. But at this point, I'm repeating myself, so I'll just wrap things up now. What are your guys' hopes, concerns, and other thoughts about Godzilla Minus One, especially now that we have a new trailer to talk about? What are some of your theories, and do you agree with any of mine? Be sure to sound off those thoughts and more in the comment section down below, and be sure to follow me on my social medias and join my Discord server if you want updates on upcoming videos or just want to hear my goofy rants about all sorts of stuff. And if you liked what you saw and want to see more, then be sure to hit that subscribe button. Either way, I'm Sam the Geigen fan, hoping that you have a lovely rest of your day and telling you all to wash your hands.